Today we're going to start making our train scene. Let's start by going to File and opening our 00 main train project, which should have our smoke particle simulation. Now let's clean this up a little bit. We're not going to need this curved circle, so we can delete that. And that's going to put our emitter for the particles back in the center. So if I hit play, the particles will now start emitting there from the center. You don't have these objects, so I'm going to delete that. You didn't have those to start with. Let me clean that up real fast. I meant to do that before I recorded this. And then here at the bottom, you have your particles that are coming from your emitter. So let's go ahead and select these and just grab them on the Z-axis and move them down so we don't accidentally select them. And let's go ahead and make a new collection that we're going to use to keep things we're not using hidden. So we have a new collection. Let's name this Hidden Objects. Well, if I can type today, there we go. And we're going to move the smoke particles, just drag that into Hidden Objects, and they're going to be part of that group. So we do not want the particles showing up or us being to accidentally select them, or even them hiding and unhiding with other things. So we're going to go to this check mark, which will prevent them from being seen at all. Even if we hide or unhide things, they'll stay, I guess, more hidden than other objects. Okay. Next, we're going to add the landscape for our scene. So if you want, we can go ahead and hide the smoke particles so we don't have to interact with those. And let's go ahead and switch to the layout tab. You may already be there. I don't remember what I had you do in the video that we did this. So just to make things simple, we're going to the layout tab here at the top. So we're going to hit Shift-A to open the add menu, go to mesh and landscape. And I believe I had you all install the Ant landscape add-on. If I didn't, remind me in class and I'll go through that. It's a real quick process. So if you have it installed, you should see it here. If not, pause the video, let me know, and then I will walk through that process to install this. So we're going to click that, and when we add that, we are going to get a menu down in the bottom left, and we don't want to click off of it because that will disappear. So if it does, just re-add the landscape and then zoom in so you can kind of see what it's doing a little bit better. So we'll open this up. We're going to operator presets, and we're going to go for large terrain. Next, we're going to change the mesh size on the X and the Y to 30. That will make it a little bit bigger. And I'm going to switch to solid view. If you're already there, it's fine. And you can see the actual terrain a little bit better. If you want to play with the random seed, that will change the overall layout. But we're going to change some of this anyway, so it really doesn't matter a whole lot what the terrain looks like at this moment. Okay, so now we can click off and that will disappear. And we're going to scale this up a little bit. Let's hit S to scale, and let's do 30 to start with and zoom out. Now you'll notice as we zoom out, we can't see all of it because our view only goes so far and then it clips or cuts off anything past that. To fix that, we have the property shelf. So letter N will open that, and we're going to view, and we're going to change the N to something large like 10,000, and you can see the grid going off in the distance. So that should give us plenty of room to see what we're doing. Let's go ahead and change this back to item because we'll need these numbers for other things later. And we can even hit N to close that. And then let's go to edit mode. And I'm going to hit 7 on the number pad. So I'm looking at this from the top. And now I want to use circle select to select parts of this that we're going to pull up. So I'm just going to left click here on the side and then hit C to start using the circle select tool. I can move my mouse wheel up or down to increase the size of this. And I just want the four corners, and let's switch. I'm going to hit enter to confirm that, but let's switch to wireframe because you'll notice that I'm not getting all of the vertices because some of them are hidden a little bit. So switch to wireframe, then we'll hit C again to bring back the circle select. And now you can see that when I click, it selects all those. So I'm just going to do all four corners. And then from there, I just want to get this outer edge. I'm not making a circle or a square. I'm just, I guess, making a square with rounded sides. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then hit enter. And you can see I have this outside edge selected. So we're going to pull all of this up. So when our camera is in the valley, it can't see past these walls because when we pull in a picture, an HDRI environment texture, those textures sometimes will have trees and buildings, and we don't want to see that. We just want to see the sky above. So we're going to basically create a valley that we can't see out of, and we can only see the sky part of the textures. So we have all this selected. We're going to turn on proportional editing by hitting O or clicking this button. And then we're going to hit G to grab, Z for the Z axis, and then increase the size of this influence circle so that we have slopes kind of connecting. And it's a little bit hard to see here in wireframe. So I'm going to hit escape so it doesn't move anything, then switch back to solid view. And now I can see a little better how this is going to shape. So now if I hit G to grab, Z for the Z axis, pull that up. I'm just going to slope this. So we have a gentle slope here on this outside edge, like so. All right. So I can left click and select that. Now, if I want to have some taller mountains along the outside, I can select a point, hit G to grab, Z, pull that up, and then increase or decrease this circle to change the shape of that mountain. If I want to do a couple at a time, I can pick 2 or 3 points, G to grab, Z, and then I can move several at once. So you can play with this outside perimeter and kind of get the shape that you like so. Okay, now we're going to create the path, not the curved path that the train will follow, but just the layout in the land where the track is going to be placed. So I'm going to just kind of orbit so I can see what's going on. I'm going to hit C again for circle select, and I'm going to make this a bit smaller by decreasing the size of this influence circle. And I'm just going to brush kind of between some of the valleys. It doesn't have to be a perfectly straight path. And I'll hit enter to confirm that, and then rotate and just kind of look at it from a different angle to make sure that I like what I have so far. And then hit C again and just continue making the path that my train is going to follow. It doesn't have to necessarily be the same thickness. It can be varied quite a bit. And then we'll finish it up across here, like so. So this will be the path where we'll add the train curve that it will follow and the train tracks and all of that. Let's go ahead and make a vertex group in case we need to reselect this. So with all this selected, we're going to the properties panel. We're going to go to the data for the object, the little green triangle. We're going to vertex groups. We're going to hit the plus sign, and let's just name this train path. And then we will click assign, and then we can hit select or deselect to make sure that it did get those attached. Okay, so now we're just going to make sure proportional edit is still on. Hit S to scale, Z so it goes up and down on the Z axis, And we're going to hit 0 so it's perfectly flat, and that will make things a little easier on you. I'm going to make this influence circle a lot smaller so it's not quite affecting as much. And let's do, let me hit escape there. I did notice that a few of these aren't selected and it's doing something odd, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure I select all those. If you don't have any little odd vertices floating around, it shouldn't be a problem, but that's causing a few weird glitches. Okay, and then I'll assign those. And I've noticed too that I accidentally had a few vertices selected in the back. So I do not want any of those assigned to this group. So I'm going to remove those. Left click off in the empty area. Click select. And all of that looks better. So now I'm going to hit S to scale, Z so it goes on the Z axis, and type in 0 so it's perfectly flat. And then I'm going to change this so it doesn't affect too much, but it's not some weird drop off close to it. I'm going to try that. And then I'm just going to grab this on the Z axis and pull it down just a little bit to make a bit more of a valley that this train path is going to go along. Once you're happy with that, if you want to do any other changes to the landscape, you can tweak some of these middle parts if you want them flatter or taller. That'll be up to you. So I think that gives us a pretty good starting point for the shape of our terrain for our train. Okay, let's switch to object mode and let's go to the shading tab. And now we'll add some basic colors to this. So we kind of have grassy areas and like dirt areas and rock areas. So let's switch to material preview, and the view clipping in this window needs to be updated also. I guess those are separate depending on which window you're in. And with this selected, let's click new, and this will give us a new terrain or new shader node for our train. It's been a long day. And we're going to put the roughness at 0 because the roughness at 1 because our terrain isn't glossy and shouldn't have any reflection. Okay. So let's add a color ramp. And we're going to plug that in next to the base color. Then let's add a new node that you haven't seen. It's called a dot product. And this node will help us get the elevation or slope of the faces. Let's get a separate XYZ node, which will go here, I believe. Hang on just a second. No, I was wrong. We don't need the separate XYZ node. So we're going to delete the separate XYZ node, and then we're going to add a geometry node, not the geometry node setup, a node that deals with the geometry of our object. And we're going to take the normal of the geometry node and plug it into the top vector. So normal means the direction that each face is facing. Is it facing straight up? Is it facing to the left, the right? That's kind of a simple explanation, but that's the basic idea. We only want to deal with the Z direction. So we want to know how much of the face is tilted towards the up axis on Z. So we're going to type in 1 for this. I know it's not labeled, but typically it's XYZ. And then we're going to plug in the value into the factor. Now we can't really see what's going on very well. So let's go ahead and tweak this a little bit. So let's change the white one to a darker green for the grass, like so. Then let's make sure this is working. So if I start to move this black over, you'll notice that the faces that are very steep start to turn black. So we don't want those to be black. We want those to look more like exposed rock. So we're going to do that a dark gray. And let's add, by hitting the plus sign, another one that we're going to make a brown color, which is going to be down here in the red area, and you can adjust how light or dark that is. So what we're trying to mimic is that on flat areas of ground, grass and plant life can grow very well. As you start to slope up, you're going to start to hit some erosion, less plant life. And as you get on really steep areas, all the dirt and grass and plant life have been washed off, and all you see is the exposed rock. So let's tweak this a bit more and give it a bit more variety. So let's take this green and make it a bit darker. And let's then add another one between the green and brown. I'm going for something that's a little bit in between those two. And we can adjust this down or up. I want a little more green to that if I can. So it looks like there's some green life, but not a lot. Let's make the brown a little bit darker. And let's zoom out and see how this looks like. All right, I'm not overly happy with this. Let me see how I did this with my previous one. Okay, I think what I did that helped, all of this is a solid gray. So I'm going to add another one and drag this to the left and make this one black. Now, there's nothing perfectly straight up and down, so you're going to get some darker grays, and we can adjust that a bit more depending on how you want that to look. I like that a little bit better. I still don't like this green, so let's make this a bit darker. And let's push this dirt level back so we get a bit more green on the flat areas. And let's see, let's push that a little bit more. So you can spend more time and tweak this to your liking. And okay, I think I'll just stop there for now. And this will let me kind of see the path of the train pretty clearly when we're putting the curve object for the train to follow. So we'll stop there with this video. And in the next video, we'll start adding the train path and the controllers and start the process of setting up the train.